surgeons and tattoo artists of Reddit. If you're the former, have you ever had to really ruin someone's tattoo to perform surgery? And if you're the latter, how did you fix it? Was the person mad? A family friend of mine had his foot blown off in Iraq. The doctors had to amputate slightly above what was left of his ankle. When the doctor showed him the line where they would be cutting, it went right through the tattoo he had on the side of his leg. He told the doctor, "You're not leaving me with half a tattoo, cut higher." So they did. Neurosurgery resident here, do a lot of lumbar spine surgery. We cut through a ton of tramp stamps these days. The tattoo actually makes it easier to reapproximate the skin appropriately. We take care to put them back together as best we can, trying to use subcuticular sutures to close instead of staples or something like that would go through the tattoo itself. No one has complained to me yet, and it isn't that difficult to put them back together, honestly. Though we did have a young lady with a script quotation vertically down her whole back. That took a while to close, taking extra care to line up the letters exactly right, but it came out nicely. My doctor shifted my C-section incision a little to the right to avoid a tattoo on my left hip area. I assumed it would have been cut through and she let me know as she was doing the incision a little askew to save my tattoo. Thanks doc. Surgeon here. Cool question. Sometimes the incision can be moved slightly to accommodate, but surgical precision obviously comes first. So I cut through several tattoos. We usually draw lines on the skin before cutting to make them easier to line up perfectly after. A tattoo makes that easier because they are already drawn. If someone has a tattoo, I spend a little more trying to make that even more perfect. No matter what, people don't generally seem to care and like the story about having had surgery through their tattoo. I don't have tattoos, but I appreciate how meaningful they are to my patients. I once operated on a broken arm of a police officer with a full sleeve. It was a beautiful tattoo and someone who had put a lot of skill into it. The operation involved about a 6 inches incision over the flexor side of the arm. There was some sort of undead being in the middle of the incision site. Instead of just making a straight line, I took some time to incise the skin around the curves and features of the zombie, never making sharp angles or moving more than a centimeter off of where it would have otherwise been. I used a plastic surgery style closure with all stitches under the skin, subcuticular 3/0 monofilament with escape suture, and pulled it after a week. It looked perfect. On the other hand, if you want railroad tracks, from interrupted suture that goes over the incision, they can do that as well. Note that some surgeons feel these are necessary in order to allow for bleeding through the skin when the closure is tight or there is a lot of swelling. If your tattoo is something you really care about, you should certainly mention it to your surgeon, and there may be some things he can do to keep it looking good. My dad was in a fire aboard a ship while in the Navy. He suffered a serious burn on his right forearm. The burn was so bad that his tattoo burned almost completely off. It took him a while to find a cosmetic tattoo artist. This was the 80s, it was all word of mouth. The why he found him was a buddy from his Navy days that was cook and had numerous grease burn covered up to match his skin tone. Dad ended up getting a tattoo to cover up his scar. He said the tattoo was the worst pain he had ever been in. Neither a tattoo artist or a doctor, but this thread reminded me of someone. There's a guy called Andy Grant from Liverpool, ex-Marine and now an athlete and event speaker. Very funny guy. He spoke at a charity event I went to a couple of years ago. He had "You'll Never Walk Alone" tattooed on his leg underneath a liver bird. An avid Liverpool FC fan. He stood on a mine during duty and lost part of his leg. The surgeries involved led to him losing the alone part. The tattoo then read "You'll Never Walk." He's now aiming to set running records and has won medals at the Invictus Games. I think he actually appeared on the UK Tattoo Fixers show and told his story. Only tangentially related. I had to have emergency abdominal surgery about 10 years ago. They didn't even have time to call my wife to come see me before they took me to the operating room. Because of the urgency of the situation, they cut me open in a way that, somehow, I lost my navel when they sewed me back up. So now I have a smooth surface of skin where my navel used to be. So, not a tattoo, but similar. Am I mad? I mean, I don't really miss my navel anyway. I do get some strange looks when I go swimming, though. Somewhere in northern Natal is a lady without a belly button and I don't know why. I was repairing an umbilical hernia and had to trim some excess skin. When I was closing, the belly button was gone. We checked the kidney bowl where I had put the trimmed skin in, no belly button. Checked everywhere, even under the drapes. Just gone approximate the edges and told her not to remove the dressing for 2 weeks. If anybody knows a 70-ish lady with no belly button, please tell her I am sorry. Actually, to me, it is easier to suture skin closed on a patient with a tattoo. It gives me very good landmarks to bring together and align as I suture. I've had several patients with very elaborate tattoos that I closed with minimal disruption to their artwork. Worked on a surgery floor in a large city trauma center. A gangbanger, who was heavily tatted, had one particular tattoo of a girl who was nude, and the angle of the artwork provided a view of her bottom parts. He came to us after he was shot in the abdomen. It was determined during surgery that he required a colostomy, and the opening was placed, shall we say, in an anatomically correct position on the tattoo. I later pulled the surgeon aside and said, "You really didn't need to put that there, did you?" He just walked away grinning. Oh man. I have something tangentially relevant, but I work with decomposing cadavers, and I've extracted blowflies and their grotesque larvae from a cadaver whose back was inscribed in the remnants of elaborate script detailing a macabre biblical verse from Exodus. The most conspicuous text was literally, "Will send swarms of flies spanning his desiccated skin and his vertebrae protruding through. No swarms of flies will be there." The junior entomologist couldn't retain his professional demeanor. It was like witnessing a perversion of someone's religious sentiments on their very own skin that had been repurposed as primitive papyrus to affront their god's menacing words of condemnation. The poor man was a rehabilitated convict who'd found God in his prison cell as he repented. He was murdered in gang-related crimes, and there were, unfortunately, many voraciously hungry flies. Surgeon here 1. Emergency. I don't care, but I'll try to reapproximate. 2. Non-emergency. I don't care, but I'll try to reapproximate. I'll cut where appropriate and safe, and if I can fix it I'll fix it. But I'm not saving your tattoo above you. Could you imagine me telling your family that you had horrible surgical damage but I saved a beautiful butterfly tattoo? Not a surgeon or a tattoo artist, but worked in the air. During my time there was a patient who came in with a large and intricate tattoo on her forearm. Can't give too many specifics, but they had an accident that made a huge cut going from wrist to elbow through the tattoo. The PA I worked with spent an hour suturing them a specific way to prevent the skin from puckering up during the healing process and ruining the tattoo. This is a good random question.